Just an Alexa Mini LF rested on the dovetail. If you're shooting anamorphic, there are a couple things I've been seeing around town lately that you might not want to do. First and foremost, the traditional aspect ratio for what you see anamorphic in is 2:3:9:1. If you're shooting with the full sensor, especially cameras with 16:9 sensors and even the Mini LF with a 3:2 sensor, when you see the footage, it's wider than 2:3:9:1. It's closer to 2:7:6:1, which is an aspect ratio that has been used for a couple movies, but when you're posting to online, it kind of looks a little weird. So if you're using Resolve, just set your timeline to the proper aspect ratio. If you're delivering in 1080, do 1920 by 802. If you're delivering to 4K, do 3840 by 1606. Also set the image scaling to full frame with crop. That way it will take up the full frame and the outer bounds of the image will be beyond your 2:3:9:1 aspect ratio, which they should be. You can also do 3840 by 1600, which is 2:4:1, and 1920 by 800, which is also 2:4:1. But 2:3:9:1 is kind of the one. As always, there are no rules. You can shoot 2:1 or 16:9 with an anamorphic lens. I do it all the time. 2:1 is a good aspect ratio on YouTube because it kind of fills up a little more of the iPhone without dipping into the rounded edges. Next, this is a big one. On a lot of the new anamorphics, there's pincushion distortion. You can see it right here and right here. I don't like pincushion distortion. It's okay if you like it, it's just a preference. But on any lens that I shoot on that has pincushion distortion, whether it's anamorphic or spherical, I always correct it. It's easy to correct in DaVinci Resolve, and it's easy to correct in After Effects. In Resolve, it's right in the edit page. It's the lens correction, and if you just back it off a little bit, you can see that the edges turn more into barrel distortion, which is closer to traditional anamorphic lenses outside of Cooks. Easy fix. I also do this for spherical and anamorphic lenses all the time. Typically, wider lenses will have a little bit of barrel distortion, but if they're really flat, I do add just a tiny bit of it with spherical lenses, and I definitely correct this lens right here and any of the new anamorphics that I see all the time with heavy pincushion distortion. Just fix it up in Resolve or After Effects. In After Effects, you can have a little bit more control using the bulge effect, and what is nice about that is that it kind of affects the middle of the frame less, and you can really tune in the edges. In Resolve, if you use lens correction, depending on how far you're going, it will make the center of the frame, like a person, appear bigger. It's kind of just the same as if you were to zoom in, but if it makes the person wider, just unlink your scale so you can scale the width and the height independently and lower the scale on the X width so it kind of squishes it back in to where your face might look normal. Most of the affordable anamorphics have pincushion distortion, and it's just so easy to tell, and things might look a little bit better for you if you fix that, and it's just the click of a button in DaVinci Resolve. If you correct the distortion and move it towards barrel and just operate in a 2:3:9:1 aspect ratio, you may find that your images look a little more like the higher end anamorphic images that we are all used to seeing. Also, I have no problem with affordable and new anamorphic lenses. Like this is a Great Joy 50. I think I got it for around $1,200. I think it's $1,200 right now. It's on sale or something. They're usually $2,000, which is more in the affordable range for anamorphics, but you can see pincushion, and we can correct it. Also, 2:1, as I mentioned, does look good. Just because you have an anamorphic lens on your camera, if you really like the character of the anamorphic lens, but you have something that you're not delivering to 2:3:9:1, shoot 2:1 or 16:9. Another thing to note is that, especially with older anamorphics or more classic anamorphics, the performance of the lens is not the best when it's wide open. So this is a T29 lens, and it's more modern because it's a new lens. So I find the performance to be fine at 2.9 wide open, but I will step away. Here's a shot of me at 2.9. This is at a 4, and this is at a 5.6. So especially on the larger sensors, you have room to stop down and you can still get a little bit of a blurred background. I find that it's always like you want to shoot wide open, you want that blurred background, but then always when I'm shooting something and stop down, which I made a full video about this, when I stop down and look at the footage later, I'm like, thank God I stopped down in this scene because it looks so good that we can see the background. This happens more in the 50 to 100 millimeter range, but so often now, a lot of stuff that we see like 50, 75, 80 mil wide open, and the background is just completely out of focus. And when you stop that down a little bit, it looks good. Especially with anamorphic lenses, the quality of them really gets better when you stop down a little bit. So we were just looking at a 5.6, we're back to a 2.8. Again, do a test, see what sensor area you're trying to fill. And if you don't need to clean up the vignette and if your lens performs well wide open, go for it. But occasionally you could stop down. Another thing that's been on YouTube a lot is rotating the lens sideways. So if you haven't seen that, I will take this lens off, rotate it 90 degrees. This monitor looks crazy, but in Resolve, you would just unlink your scale and scale accordingly to get it back into the proper stretch. When the lens is on the camera properly, you stretch it out or compress it down. When the lens is sideways, you're gonna pull it up or push it in. This can be cool for certain projects so that you can cut 9x16 out of it and 16x9 out of it. It has an interesting look. And another thing that you can do, you can rotate the camera sideways and then put the lens correctly on the camera so that you can still experience horizontal flares. Whereas if we look at this right now, we can see slightly, it's kind of hard to see here, but there's vertical flares in here instead of horizontal, and your bokeh will be the other way around. So if I were to rotate this and the lens is on it properly, let's see if I can rest this on a tripod. Hopefully this doesn't fall. Just an Alexa Mini LF rested on the dovetail. So now the camera is sideways and the lens is proper up and down. It's actually upside down, but that doesn't matter. So the lens is on there. Normally, it's just the camera that's been rotated 90 degrees. So we can see what that looks like as well. Okay, so I think that's it. Peace.